당주 실로카 다시는 고쳐라.
네.
단일라 된저 트친 니가 더dwinders 다제 코에 솔레 도위실 년당 첸데 예와 메바네 년생 공부 제선라네 예슬라 다디 조디 칼라나 저 퇴송 검수 치고 바칙땡에도 아니 된저디 니가와인 바로와 베나 된저를 트첸이 봐 베나 아주 된저기 밀리디 아니 틸레 페샤네와 춘나도야게 트여라 제장아서 당아서 된적이 밀리디 때문에 거도라는 아주 상식이 고마타여라 타바다 상식 침be 고마타고 타와 저와라야 아주 로야기 아니 아주 같은데 된적이 루텐데 차대오라 디나생이 빼는 미지자 소파를 도고와이나 가를 때한테 것은 틀레땡오라 근데 인산 된적이 루텐데 틀레 빼샤라 근데 위 아니 아주 루텐데 니까와 니까 보이봐 이네 빼는 가르총라나 파서 상식이 고마타발라 반로와 치베기 ndo chibagi kalota jiram do de pena jatso nalo jatso par de dogo na tila tengo banashe ngando saje ko mata ko wala an tenju gluten de la tengo ba de tengo ra tende ani ngado tenju le de lel hawo mare ani thauka dewaji da joachu chayo go ne ani milude thago res tende thodi ngado khajna dahin khoe chole do da shin da khoe gi ne de jatso le peshane 코를 태우고 바나시게 자초들에 개고 바나시라 텔레 도비실에 파테하기 싫으스 아니 다 가르치고는 년당 천대 예와메 봐 이고이나래 천하고이나래 예와메 딱 내가 아니 가르치고는 년발라데 소소게 추츠 년발아 추인다 가는 년바 아니 디 년바 짠다 마제 아니 산로다마 야네 안다 산로다마라 아니 곰바 근데 이따 토성 검사로 토성 곰바디 아니 제세 상주 선보도 냠네 레스 제가 근데 이제 딱 아주 된적이 밀리지 돼요. 아니 최소의 마다네라 소소기 찍기 미스 되는 데봐. 야포치에 대해 전부를 똑똑했더라.
Now moving along with the text, now apart from the first two verses, which are an expression of offering and a promise of composition, now we arrive at the actual first verse or the actual first practice. So the first practice or the first verse reads, the practice of all the Bodhisattvas is to study, reflect and meditate tirelessly both day and night without ever straying into idleness in order to free oneself and others from this ocean of samsara. Having gained this supreme vessel, a free, well-favored human life so difficult to find. So herein, the first practice and the first verse touches upon how it is important that we cultivate our spiritual practice on the basis of appreciating this human life first, appreciating this human birth. So from a Buddhist perspective, taking birth as a human being is something precious. Human birth or human life is something precious, and it is also understood as a hard-to-find opportunity, being born as a human being. And in this verse, they use the metaphor of a vessel to explore the hard-to-find and the precious nature of this human birth. So just as you would need a vessel in the form of a boat or a ship to cross an ocean or to cross a river, then a human body is necessary. A human birth is necessary for us to cross the ocean of samsara, to reach enlightenment. And this human birth or this human life is a supreme vessel because this human birth offers us the unique opportunity and the unique freedoms to pursue a spiritual practice which can help us to reach enlightenment. And as such, through appreciating its precious nature, we must now make the most of this human life, make this human life meaningful by dedicating ourselves to the practice, study, and contemplation of Dharma, to dedicate our spiritual practice to free ourselves and others from the sufferings of samsara.
pena tewaji de joachila ira pena me luten tawala ani tinde 창위 대진 조주 창위 밀리 된전이 갈라데 들어와 근데 이제는 안저 변나 대화지들 라셔라 대화지 저는 좀 마티나네 제래야 리리기는 저월에는 제래도 줘라
So then, when we say that this human birth is hard to find and precious, then we are advised to contemplate on these unique freedoms and these unique advantages that we as human beings have to cultivate spiritual practice. So as such, we talk about there being 8 freedoms that we as human beings have, and 10 advantages that we as human beings have to effectively cultivate and pursue a spiritual practice.
다 대화지들 가르라나 담보 녀월라 맞제 바라 녀월라 째서는 대보요 말아 녀 사람 동이 최최 강 말아 녀월라 맞제 봐 아니 돈돌라 맞제 봐 담보 통카도 셔라 쇼라
So maybe it might be helpful for you to note down what exactly are these 8 freedoms and 10 advantages. We will start with the 8 freedoms. So freedom herein refers to freedom from certain states. So freedom from these 8 states where there is no opportunity to practice the Dharma. So if one is born as a human being, one is free from being born in the hell realm.
아니 되네 이달에 맞제 봐 계속 이달에 제와이나 여 아칼로레 대검도 되게 동해로 아니 최최라 뜻 소소 디 동해 되긴다 되네 최최에 사는 거로 그거 말아 아니 핫스링 볼 맞제 봐 계속 핫스링 보대 지난 기우도 요설에 대한 최최라 베드 나이 치라냐 최최라 막 공부 와 아니 어때진디
So, just to enumerate what are these 8 freedoms, 8 freedom from states in which there is no opportunity to practice the Dharma. So, 1, we are free from being born in the hell realm. When one is born in the hell realm, there is no exact opportunity to practice the Dharma at all, because one is beset by suffering all the time. Then, one is free from being born in the animal realm. And this, I think, we can all relate to. As animals, one does not really have free will in this sense to pursue spiritual practice. And then 3, free from being born in the hungry ghost realm or the preta realm. And in the hungry ghost realm, one is always beset by constant hunger and constant thirst. So as such, the practice of Dharma doesn't figure at all, doesn't arise in the mind stream at all. And then 4th, free from being born as long-living gods. Now, even though we might look at being born as a god as something favorable, but with regards to spiritual practice, this is not exactly favorable, because you have such a long life, then you are distracted all the time by sensual pleasures, and as such, you never think about practicing spirituality.
되네 nga바디 가서나 최 마타르서 유도 맞제바라 nga서 최 다와다 치당이 다 남베 돈이 시와이나 산지 좀 되게 근데 최 송샤주데 nga서 다는 냠네 셔라 최 다세 유도 쩌지 아니 라로 맞제발라디가라 라로 최 다와이나 가시 최라 대바다 직최 제고상에 로 찌에 메바제라 아니 가르치고는 이전에도 지기 세야 두야 내가 된데 잔치니야 된데 있겠어요 최최라 칸로요 말아
So then, moving on, 5th, one is free from being born in a place where the Dharma has not spread. So if the Dharma or the teaching has not spread, spiritual teaching has not spread, then spirituality as a practice cannot be effectively pursued. Then 6th, one is free from being born in an uncivilized land. So even if the Dharma has spread, if the land itself is uncivilized, has no appreciation for spirituality, then one cannot really effectively pursue spirituality.
되네요. 미제와이나 미클렌시 쿠바라 게제셰마시 미든타만타 간다 근데 쿠바이나 최제 상로코로 코두마라 아니 지당에 인가 쿠바데 이 쿠바다 망보여다 간다 근데 렘바 쿠바이나 최제고서는 덴바진다고서는 덴마시 상로시 땅고서는 땅마히 근데 차고라 아니 로타친데 제와이나 지당 최다세 유디 제와이나야 코랑게 따와데 로바시네 추추추래 로쿠마든 라 추래 고안데 tindegi lota chende che. Na ani tindegi de kala na chue che la mukomba. Ra.
So then, seventh, one is free from being born with incomplete sense and mental faculties. So even if you are born as a human being, if you are physically challenged, mentally challenged, then you cannot really effectively pursue a spiritual practice. Even if you want to, you even struggle to recite a prayer. You even struggle to effectively contemplate on the Dharma teachings if you are physically and mentally challenged. So as such, this is a freedom that you are born, you are free from being born with incomplete sense and mental faculties. Then moving on, the last is free from being born with wrong views. So even if you are born as a human being in a land where the Dharma has spread, if you yourself always harbor wrong views, which begins to deny reality itself, then you cannot begin to effectively grow close to the teaching and subsequently practice these teachings.
Tadi je de dogdo che la na ra. Anja chik kono tense ro tang therain hamsra.
So I will repeat these 8 freedoms again if you struggle to note them down.
Tambo kharasana nyewa mache pa chik che.
So the first is free from being born in the hell realm.
Ani dönro mache pa la na ni ba.
2, be free from being born in the hungry ghost realm, in the animal realm.
Ani sumba de ida la mache pa.
3rd, free from being born in the hungry ghost realm.
Ani shiba de hatse rimbo la mache pa.
4th, free from being born as a long-living God.
Ani ngaba de chue mata we yu la mache pa.
5th is free from being born in a land where the Dharma has not spread.
Dene lalo la mache pa.
And 6th is free from being born in uncivilized lands.
De dumba de ani la len shi kupa ra tinde la mache pa.
7th, free from being born with incomplete sense and mental faculties.
Ani jeba de lota chen da mache pa.
And finally, the 8th, free from being born with wrong views.
Ra tambo di ko min ro de hakona an jela khare ro tevi jinse khare ro de jela samtai ra.
And if we are able to kind of note down these 8 freedoms first, then we can begin to explore why exactly is it a freedom. Is not being born in these states is a freedom.
Tatichi ani tewa ji dan jo chu de la shawra. Ta jo de la ani jo chu la ranjo nga da jinjo nga ra. Ta tin de pina ranjo nga de kasana mi yu chewa lemba ra. Ani yu usu chewa. Ani ambo tsawa. Ani leta malo pa. Mjo ta da. Ani ne la tepa tinga de char.
Now, moving on, we will explore the 10 advantages. So the 10 advantages are further classified into personal advantages and circumstantial advantages. So the first of this is the first of these are the 5 personal advantages. So the first 5 personal advantages are that you are born as a human being first. Second, you are born in a central land. Central herein referring to a land where the Dharma still survives. And third is you are born with all your faculties intact. Your sense and mental faculties are intact. Fourth, you are born living a lifestyle that is not harmful or wrong. And fifth, you have faith in the Dharma, in the teachings.
Tirasa.
Were you able to note them down? No?
Kali kala ora. Miche pa se chike. 1.
So the first of these 5 personal advantages is being born as a human being.
The second da kala na yu usu che pa.
Second is being born in a central land.
The
Central, middle, central. Central herein refers to a place where the Dharma is still active.
And third level, Ambo Tsama.
And the third is you are born with all your sense and mental faculties intact.
Then fourth level, Leta Malopa.
And fourth is you live a lifestyle that is ethical. You live a lifestyle that is not harmful or wrong.
Nela Teba.
And fifth one is you have faith in the teachings. So maybe if you are able to note them down, we can now discuss further.
Finish? Yeah. That dealer, then I'm going to meet Chewainara. Socha Tangji Nani, Libe, Setobo, Tati Kala, and the Michewaina, Midi, Cousin Anzuki Tabata, Tanchi Chamberg, Langla, Shutu, Chug Learnche, the Mima do Chitumara. She's not the day in the gala, and the Ranjong, Rangla Tangway, Chachandi, the Sandi, the day meet Chewaina, and Soja Shambale, Happy, Suzuki. Shitse Ajataya. And the Tabata Tanjim again at the day Chitunia, Legandage in a gay show, Legacan Chitura. Today, and me, Social Shimbala Chipa the Papa Asra.
So, the first of these 5 personal advantages is being born as a human being. Now, herein, being born as a human being itself is understood as a personal advantage because human beings, as compared to animals and other sentient beings, are blessed with the highest form of intelligence. And not only is a human being blessed with this intelligence, but a human being can effectively develop this intelligence further. And as such, human beings are best placed to engage the pursuit of spirituality to effectively achieve enlightenment and liberation.
Tenia, Michia Pingmara, that Tichibu Sancheta, the Sangor, the Dijibu, the woman, use Chevala de Gala, Chichutasa, Ra, Pakashi Michio in a Chutawa in Majepe, Sumjero say that and did in Juralega, Rakuma Chapaja Chutawa in Madena, and Pingmara. Chesang, she, me, Jola Mamma, me, you use Chevala de Gala, Chuta say you, Chuch and a Cheju. On the table, I lost I go, Chinglamatena, Chunian, and Yera, or they use Chewa.
So now, the second of these personal advantages is that you are born in a central land. Now, even if you are born as a human being, if you are born in a land where spirituality is not appreciated and spirituality in the form of teachings does not survive at all, and that the general public or the people in this area remain unaware of spirituality at all, then you yourself cannot effectively cultivate a spiritual practice at all. So this is why being born in a central land is a personal advantage, because central land, as we now understand, refers to a land where there is still appreciation for spiritual practice, where the spiritual teachings still survive, and there is an active interest and spiritual teachings continue to flourish. So as such, being born in a central land is an advantage because you have the opportunity to study spirituality. You have the opportunity to consult others about your spiritual practice. You have the opportunity to depend on a spiritual guide for your spiritual development.
Dizuni Tama Sanja Mayanki, Wambu Tama, Ra, and the military used to Chewina, Mapemba, Kandakashian, Amumata, me Matonado, Anjo Maguedo. And she chooses a Kudu, Rogos and Roma to her. She cala de Womebalas. Today, Junior. This is going to Tinde Mayanki. Today, Ambochas Sunday in your corner, Yen and Yetuni, she and a Shetuni, Sanatana Tantuni Ra. Today, Ambosandi rest.
So then, now, being born as a human being, being born in a central land is our advantages. But even if you are born as a human being in a central land, if your sense and mental faculties are not intact, then this in itself is a huge challenge to effectively pursue spiritual practice. Because if you are physically challenged, then even if you want to go to teachings, this becomes a challenge. Then similarly, if your sense faculties are not intact, then you cannot effectively engage the teachings meaningfully. You cannot hear, you cannot see, you cannot interact. So as such, we are very, very lucky that we are not only born as a human being in a central land, but all of our sense and mental faculties are intact. So we have all the opportunity to effectively engage the Dharma, engage spiritual practice.
이제 엄부마찬이 좀 도지는 사실 심받은 통도 진짜요 통이라 가시 때문에 통으로 가시 실로랑 하는데 가시 미마통 코라 최제에다 파셔 코라기 또 위에 세마도 라 아니 로고선에 밀러 로봇 롱롱고다 로봇인 로고 수도 통마라 된대기 강이도 세상 안주 된대기 가서 내다 많이 봐라 텔라하다 미 엄부처럼 상태니 또 사망도 나라 소소하게 싸워치 뭐 하고다 수 밀리그랜 타데 하마고나 아니 잠니리가 되는 추미주로 통야로 지게 소소소라 통미주로 차이다.
This is very, very important to reflect on from day to day because many times we kind of lose perspective and then we lose our sense of purpose, and then sometimes we struggle with our sense of self-worth when we fail to appreciate that indeed we are blessed with such precious opportunity to pursue spirituality. Because if you reflect on it carefully, then as we travel, we see many, many people who are challenged in this manner. And let alone practicing spirituality, they even struggle to earn a livelihood for themselves. So we do not struggle so much. We can earn a livelihood, and we can also dedicate ourselves to cultivate a spiritual practice. So as such, it is important to reflect on this day to day and to appreciate the worth of this human life, the precious nature of this human life.
예제 달레타만로 로서서 레타만로가 달레타만로가 라디가라 치게 지난 간도 지단 미지 미션에 지사야 통해 간데는 레가지도 지고라 다이네 같이 레타 로서나 지 메게위리 짠짠 지세야 두야 고야 드네 짠짠 레드 레타 로도 라 간도 드네 마이게 지 거리네 수수 추쇼게 차와지 제나 수수 제 등에 와 어떤데 지제 아니 내를 대바라디다 먼저다 단단한 나시 시작되는 시에는 산재 좀 되게 출래야 이시다 대바 라요바 어떤데 지제라.
Now, the fourth of these personal advantages is that you are not engaged in earning a livelihood with unethical means. Now, it remains a fact that we as human beings have to sustain ourselves. And in the process of sustaining ourselves, we have to earn a livelihood. Now, it is an advantage, or it is an advantage that we, in order to earn a livelihood, are not engaging in unethical activities. There are many people who, in the process of earning a livelihood, have to engage in unethical activities, killing, lying, and so forth. And it is a blessed opportunity that we, as human beings, find ourselves living life, earning a livelihood ethically at least. And then the fifth of these personal advantages is that we have faith in the teachings. Now herein, from a strictly Buddhist perspective, faith in teaching refers to having a sense of conviction in the Buddha's teachings.
ᱛᱚᱛᱚᱱᱫᱤ 타마들라 산제라 대바라디 인지미 산제 코랑이 나라 대바치 인도 송고마라 산제 코랑이 찍기 아버지 가르송을 나가들 빼 고디오 간서 상아말 남바 인나레 마인나레 가리인으로와 당보처럼저기 제바치 승이 시주딜로와 제바치니 아니 처럼들 펜바 있는 딜은주 페나 짜와드나 칼라르스나 세지 다베 세진들라 세지 다베 세진들 레바탈라 나이까 라와 차이 쿠시르메스라라 제가 ngzu se nyoni ji na se du mune re do tar pha che na re tum na re se ji dawe se shin de ra che wa da tu wa da dar ta mang bo se le che ba che sa tin de jin dawe se shin de le ba ta la ta che ko che le ra ngzu se du nyon ta ji shu ji ra ka sa ngu mang bo ji tang wa de zu mai ne pe sa ra tin na shi ki ko rang su sha ju ki ka de la ani kran za ki pe thwa tene che go na ta ji ki de mang bo lo go na su su ki nyam ni ya bo chin ra ka de 세지 대비 세진데 레바탈라 나이 깔라딩 얘기 순샤주기 까들 따져야 보치스 아니 레바탈라 나이 깔라와 제이 그시르면스 근데 따지 치는 수수기 얘기는 들라 당원에 이지 고바 진짜 두서나 아니 저랑이 칼로 들라 대바치는 디그레스 라마 차이 근데 이제는 수수기 랑고레스 그 싫으면라디 다 같이 상제기 숭으려네 수수기 고아지야 말하나 다 같이 그시 치고 말했어. 그 싫으면라디 근데 상제기 숭으려 달라네 인지민지 예절에 온 거예요 말했어. 얘기 숭샤주 상제 코나게 숭샤주들 따지 치 들려 전화를 팬받아 냠네 전에 지무스나로 되는데 내가 통거도나 들려 냠네 치에서 먼저라 라마페 아버테야.
Now, when we look at the last of these 5 personal advantages, that we have faith in the teachings. Now, it is important to understand that the Buddha himself never demanded faith and devotion to him, because he was confident enough to proclaim at the start of his teachings, and he addressed his followers in this manner. Just as a goldsmith begins to check to see if the gold is pure or not by cutting it, burning it, and rubbing it through any necessary means, then similarly investigate my teachings carefully and follow them only after you have investigated them and found it to be true. Do not follow them out of a sense of devotion or faith or a sense of reverence for me. So this is the Buddha's advice for us, and the Buddha advises us to take that approach with regards to his teachings, not to simply follow them out of a sense of reverence or sense of respect or faith, because it is the Buddha's teachings. We have to be able to investigate whether these teachings are indeed true and accord with reality through our own investigation, through our own analysis.
근데 인다 사지가 라 간지 만보여와 그래서 강로 두두로 아니 소소기 오늘 지 팽이들은 냠내체 팽이는 유시하는데 오라 아니 지난 인지민지 사지기 숨라네 디치고야 마셔서 먼저 그 따지체 숨다 세상 따지체 계신 분 단대변은 먼저 댄사라이나 댄사카나 고마카이나 사지기 숨으rel은 다라 켈랭고 말라 사지기 숨지도 로 아니 개바 셴바도 로 소소 산땅 쉐럴로 쯔바쯔 드네 카르데도 따오르면 어디 사지 숨을 남자 디켈은 도고 말아 세상 사지 코랑이 가도라 란다나야 그런서 개바치쇼스 딜 펜바진 수 냠네 치쇼스라
So this is exactly the approach that the Buddha himself advised. So we should not simply fall into a sense of faith and devotion in studying these teachings. We must be able to critically investigate, critically analyze these teachings to see their worth for ourselves. And there are many teachings of the Buddha that we can study, and when you find yourself studying these teachings, if you are able to relate to them, if you are able to see some benefit, if you find them practical, then by all means try to inculcate them in your lives. But if you do not see any benefit, do not find it practical, and are not able to relate to it, then there is no harm in ignoring or avoiding them. It is not just because you identify as a Buddhist or just because you are interested in Buddhism doesn't mean that it is compulsory that you have to follow these teachings out of a sense of faith and devotion. And the Buddhist practitioners really take this advice to their heart. For example, when we look at the great seats of learning in southern India, the great monasteries, the monks and the practitioners spent decades of their lives effectively to investigate this. They do not accept the Buddha's teachings just at face value at all. They read, they study, they consult the commentaries and interpretations of other masters, then they debate between themselves, and day and night through years. And only then do they accept the teachings. So, us as someone who is interested in Buddhism should take that realistic approach towards the Buddha's teachings.
세상 저기 나셔디 컬러 챙이리바 봐. 저pe 냠만에 아니 자간 다서다 나서 자가기 뺀데 주는데 샤다 콘조기에 뺀데 다와타바 뺀데 쳐지타와 다 망보여라 콘조 삼매게 레면 따양라서 봐 쩌버쩌네 아니 빠텔 펀 봐 근데도 남산 콘조 있는 근데 개발하다 있는 남산 지 모디 지는 rum다 봐
So this is exactly the reason why in the classical study of Buddhism, we place a lot of importance on dialectics, not simply for the sake of dialectics itself, but to sharpen our logical reasoning. And logical reasoning by studying epistemology and so forth. And these are not a new invention, because even the classical Indian masters, they didn't take the Buddha's teachings at face value. They didn't take the Buddha's teaching. They didn't accept the Buddha's teachings immediately out of a sense of faith and devotion. These classical Indian masters themselves established that system of epistemology, dialectics, and logical reason to effectively investigate the teachings of the Buddha.
Tini chunzul thiwa de na tini di wara.
So
sama nangza ro shin sama lele do a. Kasi nangza ya chuni la semba kusto kiu me de omara. Nangza cheki so color kiu ngala che kechamuda chuni na la chena kharin.
So at this point I want to encourage you to ask any questions, any doubts you might have in between the discussions without any hesitation. It should not be the case that our discussions always remain so serious. Maybe it's better to address our doubts and questions immediately when they do arise and we should be able to approach this discussions candidly with a sense of joy.
Sama nangza ra sama chiro resra chichile tsegoya da chikin sangwe kemasu toba kharin tindi.
Because we are effectively spiritual friends now. So as spiritual friends, we need to be open with each other.
About the 8 freedoms, the 8th one was born free from wrong views. But don't we all have wrong views till the moment we are enlightened?
Tini kurangi ganzo tanda tewa jina ne tewa dumba disra ani tawa nyamba meba lejura ani kurangi samla tanda la chenasra sang majia ba dusra ganzo sangma la tawa nyamba di jula yogi marabes.
Tanda chidangi de ganzo le rong wi tawa lopa do la na yuru tapena ganzo na che thola shi de tawa lopa la digala lende la kwa ja pena lende yu shema ja le lejinde yo mare jawa nga shi yo mare la nachu to ne sisa chene de shi wor ine ganzo la rong wi la digala tawa lopa la na bed ko lopa me ba ganzo te two de yo tawa two de bed ko takalo da ko ande wa da imbi chabata yo mare.
So yes, indeed, it is indeed true in some sense that until the moment that we gain enlightenment, we will always have wrong views. But this wrong view refers to conceptions, not actively harboring a view that denies reality. So this kind of wrong view that is being talked about here is an active denial of reality itself, denying what exists as denying what exists, or positing that something exists which does not exist at all. Now, more closely to what we Buddhists interpret as wrong views is denying the law of causality, denying karma exists. This is what we call having wrong views. Di marik baribes denying karma.
Yeah. Tede ma lo tawa lo padi. Ra. Tawa lo du kungu ne chu yu chime chi yimba de thong yo mara. Chizang tawa lo padi mari padi le.
Yes, so of course wrong views stem from a basic sense of ignorance, which fails to appreciate reality as it is.
What are long-living gods and why are they distracted by sensual pleasures?
Tene Latserimbu le di karere besra, ni konzo mezi ganga naming la shodu gyo re sungwe ras, ani wangbogi halorda, chik doyen la sobala ra, ani naing la shodu gyo re sungwe ras, ani karjisan shodu gyo res.
Tanda ganzo dile lhala de pena lhala yan jiten dan jiten lende bil hanya, tanda dan jiten bil hanya shirwa, tende bil lhala de lhagi chitang ganzo ge lhami komaa la de la ta te ten zangpo chi tsigore. Ra, in the Hamil Hagit, there's Zamborite, Inia, Corantia Hamagita, Lea Posabalten, Lay Jovalere, Inia, Lay Jovalent, Sadigala, Lay Lutele, that's when I'm to meet Mille Cheganachi to him on which door. Ra, Lay Lutele, the day pay 20% of Hayula, Caragona, Sanding you the names, Ra, Tendrella or the patient. And they do a la Suzula, Gangido, Dungido, Chi, Medugala, Church Hagi. 아니 디팅이 말았어. 로직이 말았어. 라 둥이 메뱅 엔주미래라. 근데 둥이 메뱅 엔주마 엔주미는 추체 로디치기 말. 메지디 갈고 코랑길 사이 츠시 간잘래다 로망볼래. 베 나이신데 되셔. 라. 근데 데데데 아니 다 로긴 고 쳤다 시갈라모들 코라나 시에기 따실이 오르스. 라 다처럼 자르지 고해서 다처럼 시기르다 고운두가 아니 코랑게 녀라 코랑게 룰레 팀마야포 근데 무슨 소바 메토다 다 캄바다 간데 창창되니 라 근데 지부장이 타마들 거다 지부장이 추 맞은디어레스 타마들 다 저런 지르다라니 근데 이 다치 고거레스라 고운두가 아니 다시니 징주바로 제요 근데 디가라 아니 칼로 소소 딱 인주로지 아니 소소로 시간하면 아니 룰레 팀만 냠바 카야로 든담 리르다 라 근데 인다 신이 아니 딱 고라게 지 슈제 뒤서 참아 돌아 당사라 근데 사철이 물론 도도도 갈라고서는 그 깁다로 치니 시간하면 무슨 콜링 지강이 튀겨서 말해 때문에 갈라 미스 간다 나이 땅에 슈제 로디 고고 말했어 라 단단한서 엔데도 레다 슈제니만 제 다운디 갈라 오늘 내가 지고나 뒤두에 치디 슈제 되는 야나지 스스로 강해지던 땅한테 강해들세 슈제니로 근데 지르라 다 가시 오늘 로소네 봐 남주 첨부도 거서 잡아지고 단지 참 상대의 진이 유지를 마셔 마치 슈제디 갈라 가서 강해들에 줘야 치들어 지르다 라 제선tal hatserim bula chöche makon yadku mizu kanzu jibu chin dede ra khora tsidzedle wodi chinna.
So now when we are talking about long living gods herein we need to understand that within the Buddhist understanding we talk about worldly gods and transcendent gods. Now long living gods herein refers to worldly gods. And now when we look at our lives as human beings, then we face suffering almost on a daily basis, and we are face to face with the suffering of birth, aging, sickness and death almost on a daily basis. So as such we have the opportunity to reflect on suffering, and through reflecting on suffering then we also have the opportunity to now cultivate spiritual practice by developing a determination to overcome our sufferings, because we come face to face with suffering, we experience suffering. Now as opposed to this, when you are born as a long living God, then your existence is not marked by these kind of sufferings. So you are not face to face with suffering on a daily basis at all. So as such, these gods, they become complacent because they are not they do not face this kind of sufferings at all. And in Buddhism we say that without suffering there is no renunciation. Renunciation means without suffering you do not develop a determination to be free from suffering at all. So this applies to the gods. They do not experience any kind of suffering at all, even though they have taken birth as a god due to the good karma that they have accumulated over lifetimes. But when they are born as a god, since their existence is not marked by these kind of sufferings, they do not really have the opportunity to reflect on suffering, reflect on their existence, and as such do not never develop the determination to be free from suffering. So as such, they never develop the need for spiritual practice when they are alive. Now, as their moment of death approaches, then there are signs that show that they are about to now pass away. Some say that there is a sound in the air which proclaims that you are now about to die. And then physically they begin to show signs. For example, the gods, they are supposed to be born with a naturally sweet-smelling odor, then also adorned with beautiful flowers. As death approaches, this sweet-smelling odor begins to give in to a stench, and then the flowers that adorn their body begins to wither, and as such all the gods avoid them, all the other gods avoid them, and it is only at that moment that they begin to develop an intense sense of regret that they have wasted away their lives, and it is only at that moment they begin to come face to face with suffering, and they would have wasted away the long life that they had as gods. And this is particularly true because when we look at ourselves as human beings, and when we look at people, how people come to practice spirituality, and how people see the need for spirituality, it is always when they face challenges, when they are going through something, only then they see the need for spiritual practice. It is rarely the case that people who have all their cares and needs and who do not struggle much, that they begin to practice spirituality. There are rare cases, but for most of the time, we only begin to appreciate the value of spirituality only when we begin to experience setbacks, challenges, and sufferings. Any other question? Yeah?
Yeah, I just have a question. So you meant on this discussion, you mentioned that okay, when you're suffering, you believe that is spirituality. So I'm interested to know when monks and nuns, when they are very young, they are admitted to monasteries. At such young, what inspires them to keep going? Because as children, they have not had that much suffering or realization of suffering. So what inspires them to study this?
Tini chöcheola nijongche go resra, nijongcheola an dongyengwezeng go resong roas. Ani Quran tiyo de derto ta nganzo ani chawada ani la sobara. Lo chunjune ani gombala shuguyong go roas. Ani chunju go zamba dongyengwezeng chiya la re dora. Tis kamaroas. Ani chunju go zamba ani chö nyamle chiya la ra. Lo chi la ne simshu kawani chige venas.
치던들이 지난 가서 지난 미개바 지난 가서 지기 강의를 좀 하는데 데스 칼에 커버로셔도 디네 단다디래 아니 더 진주단에 지난 먼저 리심을 라 그나 다 베바다 히말라야를 지도 마치 진주진 타고서 오라 이내야 콜레디 인주로데 근데 개체 매바이네 다 코타사라 검바 가와되는데 로르체 테울로 든든데 갈리갈리 코라 데 주체고에 진짜 하고도라 디두가 라페나 맞아 부지라 맞아 파마도 저기 lap란 땅거라 봐 파마도 저기 땅에 부고디 암지소고도 세리빠서고도 기계서고도 파마기 미유로 시키는 땅거라 이내야 부고디 담보 땅거라 그 런이 만들기 땅 쇼긴 하고라 건다쇼 츠테데네 치치고라 이내 마음 벗고 참으샤네 고랑이 디까마가 나토야 돼 봐. 단다 진주가도 콜 로바 치고르데 타마들 코 디간타다 도투니 라 부구 진주 사마 알랍도 두기가 마음바디 치길라는 로마라 데 드가나싱이 단다 곰바타선 땅시데 파메게 땅주로 부 가시가시 진주가 고랑이 때지 깨치 시시든가 곰바 두일라니들도 근데 파메게 접시죠 가시기야 파마도 별도이나 부구 리파야 보러 부구 인도 하오지 근데도야 곰발 땅에 루수지라 니 푸타데 포무타데 타고네 거는 지 곰발에 퓨일라니 드레요 re ine chona la dembre ko ngi ju de che yo mate ne ko ko mata san de chu chu ba ya bo che ane kare ko lo jo che de de chini ya chungo ten ro ra.
So this is indeed true that as opposed to adults who begins to realize and identify suffering in their lives, and as such they do develop the determination to overcome these suffering, and as such they are drawn to spiritual practice. As opposed to adults, then young kids, young children who are educated in the monasteries and classical monastic institutions, they do not really have the same experience. This remains a cultural element in the Tibetan, in Tibet as well as the Himalayan regions where they are predominantly Buddhist, to send young kids to monastic educations, to monastic institutes. Now it is true that it is very difficult for a young child at such a young age to develop a true sense of renunciation, to effectively pursue spirituality. But with that being said, the monastic institutes offer them an environment wherein they are able to understand spirituality, wherein they are trained in spiritual practices. And this is, if we think about it, not really different from sending young children to school too. For example, the children will never willingly say that they want to go to school. The parents have to force them. Wake them up early in the morning, drop them off to school, and then the parents do this with a consideration that, okay, when they grow up, I want them to become independent individuals. I want them to become a doctor or a scientist. The child willingly never agrees to this. But with that being said, once they are in the school environment, then they become engaged with their studies, with their environment. And as time goes on, it is the case that these young children grow up to be able, independent individuals, adults. So similarly, even though the children who are sent to these monastic institutes would not really willingly go, but this is not to say that all of them are forced to go there. There are young children who willingly say themselves that they want to join a monastery, and then it's the responsibility of the parents to fulfill that wish of the child. But the monastery ensures that they have the support, the environment to understand spiritual practice, to understand spirituality. And it remains a practice in Tibet that a family sends the sharpest or the most intelligent of the children in the family to these monasteries.
At what age is the youngest?
Lo Chungshu Kazakhstan.
다들 지랑이 너와 나올런도는 슈타고 주로와 직접을 망버렸어요. 다 칼로 돌링체 이내 가시기다 자로 쪼니와 딱 한다 실로게 차도다 다 충시도 맡아들 로 달로 된도 이나 다 한지 책 따다지 요머래 가식는 자로 쪼니나 아니 검바즈는 되게래
자로 쪼니라나
차차차든도 차파 비투니 근데 로지기 세일라셔 다된 때 너와는
So in the Vinaya, there is a specific Vinaya, the ethical code of conduct for spiritual practitioners. There is a sort of a guideline about the age limit. And even though there is a sort of a guidance, but there exists a lot of debate about what effectively is the minimum age. But in the Vinaya, it specifies that if the child is of an age where they are able to scare away the cocks, the chickens, volitionally, then they are eligible to join the spiritual community.
이내 가시게 공부하다서는 콜로노치 라 gombe cho ya lol sin do du che jang che lap ko ra inji phe khar jang jang ani domba du ya de ta ngjo ge tha ani le ge chu domba le ora te la pang lang du ko tha mo ko de chunju ne de che wo ma lo che do la na ta te su su go che o nga ti pa ya de she la ne ha ko te de la ni domba do chunju ko la tra che ko ani ko lo che chu ora.
And that is why it is the approach in many monastic educations when parents send very young children to the monasteries that they do not immediately give them the vows, that they do not immediately give them the ordination vows, that they raise these children and they educate these children in spirituality as well as modern education too, English, science and all. And as they grow up and as they are of an age where they can think and decide for themselves, only then they are offered the choice whether they want to take the ordination vows or not.
야, 다이네 지난게 배선은 데데데이네 다 고바 호소소소소가 팀로도 가시안 전자 딜레디 아니 dombadu글라나 티나라 춘주에 있어 쳔보에 있어 담을래라 따따따네요.
So even though this is the kind of guideline that is specified in the Vinaya, the ethical code of conduct set forth by the Buddha, but in many different traditions and in many different monasteries, they have differing interpretations. And as such, in some monasteries, they have like a blanket rule, which says that when you reach a certain class, you will have to take the vows. And the class in monastery works a little bit differently. It doesn't matter whether you are old or young. It depends on the moment you join the monastery. So it could be the case that you are really young, or it could be the case that you will be of age.
당아도 전종가들 나오라. 야, 전종가들 담보도 갈라나 상제 지된도 좀 봐제. 아니 대 추송 봐, 니 봐제.
Now, moving along with our discussion, the next of the 5 advantages is what we call the 5 circumstantial advantages. So the first of this is a Buddha has come. 2, a Buddha has taught the Dharma.
아니 숨바도 가서나 땜반 내봐. 상제 땜반 내봐.
3rd, the teachings or the Dharma has survived.
아니 지바데 디 제순주 봐.
4th, they are active followers of the teachings.
ngabadi jinshi hini tsawala hini tsawayo ba.
And 5th, there are favorable conditions for Dharma practice. Now herein, favorable condition refers to that there is love and concern for fellow human beings or fellow spiritual practitioners.
다들 칼라는 담보 산제 지된도 준바라데 갈라는 산제 계속 당가도 남바지나 산제 점대데 지된 갈라 폐바이 메나 라 산제기 추요 말아 추면은 산제기 추가 넣으셔야 말아 그래서 된대 많이 봐 산제 지된도 폐바장도 만들 봐 아니 추송 봐라 추송은 가도 인연에 제라 제장 산제 지된도 마페나 가도라 추체이 디요 말아스 아추 폐바장제 많이 왜 니바데 가르스나 산제 지된도 준바 마세 대 추송 봐 추송할 때는 가도 다는 냠내 제다 저기 코라게 안에 손으로도 놓아야도 와.
So now the first of this 5 circumstantial advantages is that a Buddha has indeed come into this world. And from a Buddhist perspective, the Dharma and the practice of the Dharma is not possible if a Buddha has not come into this world to expound and give these teachings. So as such, we appreciate the fact that indeed a Buddha has come into this world. And then not only has a Buddha come into this world, he has also given us these teachings. So that is the second of these 5 circumstantial advantages, that he has taught the Dharma, that the Buddha took it upon himself to teach the Dharma.
산지 지된데 셴바 마체 산지기 최송과 마체 단다에 땜바 명량바 내대와 안들 냠내 제요 바라 계시 산지기만 최송 안디가 최참마 송사디가 제라니 슈예 메바지 냠내 제야 메바 갖고지 메서나 난 땜바 내요 마라 단지 산지기 땜바 눈도 땜바 참마 내대요 와다 내바선데 마데 아니 산지기 수로를 양아주 디기 제슨 주바니 말한선 주에 고고도 서서 장와이는 서서는 전바이는 산지 수로 참아 차려라 요래 수도들 넣으셔라 근데 아니 가서 디지슨 주에 봐 유튜브 주사에 봐 근데 지체 아다 계시야 산지 근데 최송송 땜바 내려나 이마 산지 안저게 히 투자와 챔벽은 계시 최송 매바이나 안저 단다 최 냠내 제에 말아
So this is to appreciate the compassion that the Buddha had and has for us sentient beings, that he took it upon himself to teach the Dharma. Because if the Buddha didn't take it upon himself to teach the Dharma, then the Dharma, as we know it, isn't possible at all. So first, a Buddha has come into this world. 2, the Buddha took it upon himself to give these teachings. And 3rd, not only did the Buddha come into this world and took it upon himself to give these teachings, it survives to this day and age. Otherwise, it doesn't really help. It just becomes a fact of history if the teachings themselves do not survive. But the teachings and the collection of teachings survive in its entirety in this day and age. So as such, we have access to the teachings. And not only that, they are active followers of these teachings. There is a spiritual community who are actively following and practicing these teachings.
다 진실이 저라들 대시 저더니들아 같이 찍할라나 먼저 취체라 취체해라 아니 찍 던져줘 라 근데래 니 제도네 아니 취체해라 접교도 냠내진 다 던져러스 찍할로 가서 취치라나 소소 개장지 되는가 되도 말아 들래 접주 진이로 다 로바치니면나 라 고마다선 쓰이나 오 딘데기 던져요 봐 던데래 고쳐.
Now the last of these 5 circumstantial advantages is that there are favorable conditions for Dharma practice. Now herein, favorable conditions for Dharma practice refers to the fact that there is an active surviving support system for those who are inclined to practice spirituality in the form of monastery, spiritual community, and not only that this spiritual community offers us a support system that is informed by a sense of care, concern, and love for each other.
상황에서 선대 대화지던 요아치 시내라. 소 도도지 동로도 가르자올라나. 말을 되게 차상 차리요. 봐. 소소소 가와가야. 말을 루텐 데 약고 치타지. 나라 째왕하마게 레 약고 사발라 때는 데고 딘데 지터네. 다당알라 딘데 고가지 두선. 소소소 가와가 트와체데 개천보다. 봐. 먼저 따티상 데스실로다 가사칼도 미카시 엔데도 춘도 되는 말에 엔데 상들아 미카시 수수기 미스들 렌타메 나디 리드 가르쳐 제치 민도 아산 수수소라 지게 칼로르지 판생다 월생 전화로지 아니 베도고는 잠니가 데니마라 라시자 든리도 라 든들리야데 가서 수수기 루덴데 짜와침보 임하마 데 추메주로 동 조메 개장 지따서 댄서 메주지 토네 수수리드 메버치고라 라 제가 단단 얘기 시대주 참말로 딜래 알아서 되어요. 제가 수술리도 자와 전부 댄 상부질랑이 하고는 들어와 땅 말아. 자와 전부 하고 라. 아주 잘라지는 비주미 주르조 즉 말로 진도 유식이라. 와 약보지는 아주 냐뭐 비도 거라 티 감는 lun담을 치고라. 세상 아주 수술리도 된대지 하고는 딜래 자와 전부 진네 아니 최체에게 그걸로 땅돈을 빼아보라.
Now, to sum up this kind of extensive discussion on the 18 freedoms and advantages, one should be able to walk with this understanding after the discussion that indeed the human birth that we have is something precious, and it really gives us so many unique opportunities and freedoms to effectively cultivate a spiritual practice. So as such, it is indeed something precious, and we should be now able to rejoice in this fact that we are born as human beings. We should be able to appreciate the worth of this human birth that we have taken, because that is the point of contemplating on the 18 freedoms and 18 freedoms and advantages, that we are able to appreciate our own worth. We are able to appreciate the nature, the precious nature of our lives. And as opposed to that, I think that many people in this day and age begin to struggle with finding a purpose in their life, with understanding their own worth. And if you cannot appreciate the precious nature of your own life, then you will always struggle to find purpose and meaning. So as such, it is important that day by day we begin to learn to appreciate and rejoice in the fact that we are indeed born as human beings, and this human birth is something precious, and it affords us so many unique opportunities and freedoms, and as such really appreciate its precious nature. And if we fail to do this, then we will always struggle with our sense of worth, with our sense of purpose, and then we will lay waste to our lives. We will begin to actively harm ourselves, isolate ourselves, and then we begin to become very lonely. And in extreme cases, people are also driven to commit suicide because they struggle with this sense of worth and purpose in their lives. So as opposed to that, one should on a daily basis learn to appreciate and rejoice in the precious nature of this human birth. And it is important to understand that the human birth is precious, because if you have something precious in your hand, you would take good care of it. You would put it in a safe place, do whatever you need to take care of it. But if you have something useless, rotten in your hand, then you will discard it immediately. So this is why it is important to recognize that indeed the human birth or the human life that we have is something precious.
먼저 리덴디 자치머레 드림다. 전서 산으로 코세. 니 라치마. 전서 레벨은 저를 take
So not just me saying that it is precious. Are you able to relate to the fact that this human birth, that our lives are indeed precious? Little bit. This tamanga sort of.
Yes or no?
Yes or no?
Yeah. 미천서 하고 하고만 한번 찍어야 되더라.
Because it is difficult to gauge from your reactions.
야야, 아니 간도 싫어이더라.
Okay, then we break for lunch now.
그나가 뜰 타제 버체 제라야 안테스 디즈는 돈디요.
Yes.